Which animals are the smartest? And how did they get this way? Activity, they can be trained to perform stunning tricks. Not only can they follow hand signals, but they can even learn the meaning of written symbols. Why would a mammal that spends most of its time underwater and has flippers instead of hands have these kinds of skills? Throughout the animal kingdom, you can find creatures with extraordinary talents. Elephants with impressive memories, birds that solve complicated puzzles, and tool-making chimpanzees. They inhabit utterly different worlds and come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. But is it possible that these animals could all get their smarts in similar ways? Because whether they walk, swim, or fly, the cleverest animals on Earth, including us humans, seem to have one thing in common. We live in groups. So, could social living be the key to creating the most powerful minds? Around the world, animal researchers are trying to find out. And this is one of their favorite subjects. Everyone knows that dolphins can put on incredible shows. But their greatest performances take place far from the crowds. Because here in the wild, these animals execute the most amazing tricks when they work as a team. In these shallow waters off the coast of Florida, dolphins band together to get the better of fast-moving fish. Here's how their trickery works. One dolphin swims in a circle. It whips up a wall of muddy water, corralling any fish inside. 3 other dolphins wait just outside the ring of mud. As the fish try to leap out of the muddy ring and escape, they jump right into the open mouths of the waiting dolphins. Soon, a dolphin swings around again to create another corral. They seem in perfect sync, as if they planned every move together. But what's really going on? Are they strategizing and communicating with each other the way we would? Or are they simply drawn together on the hunt by pure instinct? One big reason to suspect that something more complex is going on is this: the dolphin brain. When you look at the size of most animal brains, there's usually a pretty direct link to the size of their bodies. The bigger the body, the bigger the brain. But some animals defy expectations. Humans have much more gray matter than other animals our size. So do chimps and whales. And so do dolphins. So how did their brains get big?
Well, $6 million question has always been, why do dolphins and whales have such large brains?
Neuroscientist Lori Marino is trying to answer that question by hunting down some very ancient clues. She travels all over the country, studying fossils to trace the evolution of the dolphin brain.
One of the things that we wanted to find out with this research was exactly when they got their large brains.
Here at the Smithsonian Institution, she and her colleague Mark Ewan are examining fossil skulls of the dolphin's ancient ancestors, early whales called archaeocetes. Some archaeocetes were huge, ferocious predators with gigantic teeth. Compared to modern dolphins, Their bodies were massive, growing up to 55 feet long. In their day, nearly 40 million years ago, they were the biggest animals on Earth. Today, examining fossil skulls of early whales, Lori is trying to estimate the size of the brains that once sat inside. In ancient fossils, the space where the brain was housed is often filled with sediment. But CAT scan can see through the sediment and reveal the exact dimensions.
We were absolutely thrilled to see the results of the study because it gave us information no one had before.
When Lori examines the CAT scans of this giant killer skull, she discovers not everything was big.
This animal had a very big body and a very small brain.
But a few million years later, things started to change.
Something happened, and what we see is a shift.
When Lori looks at more recent dolphin ancestors, dating to about 30 million years ago, she discovers, in evolutionary terms, a fairly sudden shift. Bodies and teeth shrank, but at the same time, brains got bigger.
The brain of the early dolphins and whales increased in size, sometimes many-fold.
The dolphin brain got big and stayed that way. In fact, for millions of years, until early humans came along, the dolphin had the most powerful brain on the planet.
Up until about 1 million years ago, the brainiest species on the planet were not primates. They were dolphins and whales, and we are just a very recent kid on the block.
The question is, why did the brain change?
Everyone would like to know why there was this shift in relative brain size with dolphins.
Lori thinks that path was a social one. No longer giant toothy beasts, individuals could increase their chances for survival by joining forces.
Perhaps they needed to hunt together, to band together against predators. So these new animals were smaller and not as formidable. They kind of needed each other.
Today, more than 30 different kinds of dolphins swim the seas, including the bottlenose dolphin, the spotted dolphin, and the orca, or killer whale, the largest of all dolphins. Most live in groups or pods, usually of a few dozen individuals. Sometimes, pods will come together, forming a megapod, numbering in the hundreds or thousands. It seems clear that today's dolphins need each other. But why would they need big brains too? To find out, we need to dive deep into the dolphin world. Here in the Caribbean waters near the island of Bimini.
Okay, Al, we're ready when you are.
Researchers Kathleen Dudzinski and Kelly Malillo Sweeting have spent years tracking wild spotted dolphins, carefully observing and recording their interactions, trying to decipher the secrets of dolphin society. Today, the scientists encounter a gathering of dolphins swimming together. There are about 16 of mixed sexes and ages.
What we definitely saw
talk to such ancient characters and find out, if they have any wisdom for us.
Rather than deciphering their language, Lily decided the quickest route to communicating with dolphins would be to teach one of them how to speak English. And he set out to do just that, with one of the strangest animal experiments ever devised.
John Lilly did an experiment that involved building a dolphin house. And what he did was he bought property and he flooded the first floor so the dolphin could actually live in this first floor area.
With a dolphin named Peter living in less than 4 feet of water. It wasn't a very humane approach. But the idea was to keep Peter in close contact with his teacher.
He actually had a woman living there with the dolphin in a very intense time where she tried to teach this dolphin English.
The young woman was Margaret Howe, and she lived, ate, and slept here for 2.5 months, trying to teach Peter every day. This is a sound recording of Margaret counting while Peter attempts to imitate her.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's safe to say the Dolphin House experiment was both unethical and a complete failure.
What the dolphins did was not English. They could imitate the numbers of syllables that they were hearing, but they couldn't formulate English. They don't have the same kind of system, articulatory system we have.
In spite of its shortcomings, Lily's work got a lot of attention and inspired the Hollywood film The Day of the Dolphin.
What do you know about linguistics?
The fictional scientist, played by George C. Scott,
Here comes our first morphine.
seemed to have better luck teaching his dolphin to count 1, 2, 3 in English than John Lilly ever did. For real-life scientists, Lilly's work showed that any idea of teaching dolphins human language was probably a fantasy. Today, researchers are focused intently on trying to decipher the dolphin's own system of communication. And they've been using underwater microphones to record all those clicks, squawks, and whistles, hoping to find patterns and discover what they actually mean. But there's a problem. Dolphins make sounds underwater by vibrating tissues in their nasal cavities, a bit like the way we humans vibrate our vocal cords. They usually don't open their mouths or make any visible signs.
Dolphins are essentially ventriloquists. They produce sound and you can't see anything. Nothing changes on their facial expression or even their blowholes. And so they can be making sounds without moving, and you have no idea who made the sound.
But now, researchers have come up with a pioneering new technique to listen in on dolphin conversations.
We're going out today to try to find wild dolphins and attach tags to them.
Biologist Vincent Yannick is on a quest to eavesdrop on wild dolphins and try to decipher the dolphin communication code.
There are little recording tags that can give us information about their sounds that they're making and also give us information about the behavior as they're in the bay in their own wild environment.
Today, a bottlenose dolphin's been captured in shallow water.
Vincent, are you going to put the acoustic on?
Yes, I will.
The researchers work rapidly to minimize distress to the animal. To solve the problem of capturing the exact sounds made by a particular dolphin, Vincent's team uses suction cups to attach a recording device directly to the animal's head. It's small enough for a dolphin to ignore.
Nicholas! Nicholas! Get signal?
Roger that.
Okay.
If it were uncomfortable, the dolphin could easily use the seabed to knock it off.
That's good. So now we give it 5 minutes.
It will now record all the sounds that the dolphin makes, and using GPS, will keep track of its movements. The dolphin's released and soon joins some other tagged dolphins. The scientists will constantly observe them, so later they'll be able to match their behavior to the sounds they're making.
What's going on over there? Lots of splashing. I think that's that dorsal fin. Right behind. Yeah, there are two dolphins.
What we can look at is what the animal is doing, whether it's traveling, whether it's foraging, whether it's socializing with others. Those kinds of things we can observe from the surface.
After a few hours, the devices fall off on their own and float to the surface, so the team can retrieve them and begin analyzing the dolphin sounds. At first hearing, it's a cacophony, a whole range of dolphin clicks, whistles, and pulses. Today we know that the creaky door clicks are the sounds dolphins use for echolocation. They work like sonar pings. Dolphins listen for the echoes of the clicks as they bounce off objects in their environment. This plays a crucial role in helping them locate their prey and navigate in murky water. But Vincent is interested in other kinds of dolphin sounds, the ones they use for communication. Sometimes there are patterns, certain sounds consistently made when a dolphin is doing a particular action, like this one.
One sound that we found is a so-called bray sound, which dolphins produce when they find fish. And it's a sound that brings in other dolphins as well.
And when dolphins are aggressive, playful or not, they often produce lower frequency sounds, known as burst pulses. These kinds of calls are common in the animal kingdom. But there is one kind of sound dolphins make that is much more unusual. It's called the signature whistle.
Every dolphin has its own signature whistle that's different from all others. So within a population, you have very, very different whistles for every animal. The function of the whistle really is to broadcast its identity and also to stay in touch with other group members. The closest in our language, perhaps, is really if I would say, I'm Vincent and I'm over here.
Dolphins have good vision, but if the water is murky or individuals get separated, Vincent believes they use signature whistles to help keep a group together.
If an animal gets lost, it will also produce that whistle to try to make contact again. And that's something that we often see between mothers and calves. And the calf wanders off and is far away and eventually wants to get back to the mother. What it does is it starts to produce its signature whistle.
It is rare for animals to have unique calls that correspond to particular individuals. But dolphins aren't the only animals to use vocal calls as a way of identifying each other. One other animal known to do this inhabits a world completely different from the dolphin's underwater domain. The Amboseli National Park in Kenya is home to some of the most social animals on the planet. Elephants.
The thing about this park that's outstanding is the visibility of the elephants. Population of more than 1,000 elephants, which we know individually.
Karen McComb has been observing elephants here for decades, trying to unlock the secrets of elephant society and communication.
It's being able to get inside animal minds, get into a social world that's actually rather different from ours, that will tell us what elephants are really thinking.
Elephant society is a family affair, especially for females. They stay with their mothers, sisters, aunts, and cousins for their entire lives. The oldest female, known as the matriarch, is the leader. Young males stick with their mothers until they're about 10 years old, and then they leave the social group to live independently. And elephants are always on the move.
Elephants have this really unusual and complex social system. So instead of just staying put and communicating with their immediate neighbors, they sort of move in relation to one another in a very fluid fission fusion way.
Females and young males spend time with lots of elephants in groups of different sizes. And they communicate with dozens of different kinds of calls. Some rumbles are such low frequency, they're out of range of human hearing. But elephants can detect them from miles away. Karen believes that their calls are crucial for the elephants to keep track of friend and foe.
They'll come into contact with many, many other families as they move and feed, and they will be making decisions about which families it's safe to feed next to and which they should avoid.
To find out how elephants make those decisions, Karen designed an experiment. It involves years of painstaking research and some very powerful speakers. Karen has made a library of elephant contact calls and is going to play some to a group of elephants who are on the move and see how they react. First, she plays a call from an elephant from a different group, but a friendly one. The elephants just keep on walking, and their behavior doesn't change. But when Karen plays a call from an elephant they don't know well, their behavior is very different. The elephants abruptly stop their march. They turn toward the unfamiliar voice, gather closer together, and move directly toward the sound in what Karen says is a defensive show of force. Karen tested 21 families and found that the elephants consistently distinguished between friend and stranger, recognizing up to 100 different voices. She believes that a lot of their brain power and memory is going into keeping track of other elephants, the ones they do and do not know. Who is safe to be around and who might pose a threat. And it could be the same with us.
We have these relationships.
But each individual has a minuscule brain.
Ants are always essentially working together toward one goal: to help each other out to make the colony a success. Now, dolphins are on the other end of the spectrum. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they're competing with each other. So when you enter this element of both cooperating and competing at the same time in order to survive, this new kind of social complexity and intelligence blossoms.
Cooperation and competition side by side. This is the recipe for a really complicated social life. And animals who live this way often have big brains. But whether one leads to the other is still unclear. Part of the challenge for scientists is figuring out how much animals like dolphins might understand about their social lives. Dolphin cognition expert Diana Reese has spent years trying to find out. She works with dolphins at the National Aquarium in Baltimore. Keeping dolphins in captivity is controversial, and aquariums in the U.S. haven't captured wild dolphins for 2 decades. Diana believes it's only in the controlled environment of aquariums that you can unlock some of the secrets of the dolphin mind. Here, she can carry out experiments not possible in the wild. The aquarium has an observation chamber nicknamed the Pit.
Okay.
It's cramped. But from here, Diana has an excellent view of the dolphin's underwater behavior. This dolphin is making bubble rings, a behavior observed both in captivity and in the wild. A dolphin blows out an air bubble from its blowhole, then flicks it with its tail to create a ring shape. Bubble rings appear to have no practical purpose, except for entertainment. It's another dolphin behavior we can relate to, the ability to play. Diana wants to find out what else we share on an even more fundamental level. She's investigating whether dolphins recognize themselves as individuals. Do they each have a sense of self? Diana places a one-way mirror inside the observation window.
So now we're looking through a window, and they'll be seeing a mirror.
The dolphins can't see people inside the pit. All they see are their own reflections. Dolphins don't behave like this, staying in one place and staring if they simply meet another dolphin. Another extremely unusual action is this curious fin wiggling.
This looks nothing like what they do when they're socially interacting with another.
They also look inside their mouths or closely at their eyes.
They perform all sorts of odd behaviors, much like we might do in front of a mirror to see what we look like when we do that new dance step, or when we just want to see how we look in a new outfit.
They seem to be using the mirror like a tool to see parts of their bodies that are usually out of view. This all supports the idea that dolphins must be aware they're looking at themselves. Dolphins share this ability to recognize themselves in a mirror with just a few other animals. Elephants do it. So do chimpanzees. But the vast majority, including dogs, don't. And interestingly, neither do young humans. Before they're 18 months old, most children fail to point out a red dot painted on their cheek. This boy assumes he's looking at another child. Only when they're about 2 does a child first realize that the mark is on her own cheek, and she knows the reflection is of herself. Eventually, a human child's self-awareness will go far beyond recognizing her own body in a mirror. She'll be aware of her own thoughts and be able to contemplate the thoughts of others. But is the same true for other animals, like dolphins? Diana thinks it might be.
Having a sense of self would go hand in hand, I could say flipper to flipper, with complex understanding of others.
So if animals like dolphins recognize themselves as individuals, how much do they understand about the other creatures around them? It's a question debated by animal researchers.
The big question is not do animals think, the big question is do they think about others thinking?
Thinking about others thinking is something we humans do all the time.
as humans. We are remarkable because we can imagine what it's like in some context to be someone else. That's an amazing ability that we see in humans.
This ability we have to imagine what it's like to be another person is known as theory of mind.
The theory of mind is the idea that humans, all humans, normally develop an understanding that other people have different minds than our own, that what I know is different than what you know, and that what I want is different than what you want. And it's a big question for animal researchers whether any non-human animal also eventually, or at all, develops a theory of mind.
It's extremely difficult to prove that an animal thinks about other animals' thoughts. But some of the most interesting research has been done with our closest relatives, the chimpanzees. Primatologist Franz de Waal works with chimpanzees at the Yerkes Primate Center in Atlanta. When an animal like a chimp is aware that another chimp has a different perspective on the world, it could give it an
If you start giving one of them grapes, which are far better than...
Obviously, we are intense